which has ruined their recent crops. However, Gandalf chooses to use the weather as a convenient excuse to remain in the village for a while, clearly because he's feeling suspicious. Vezin has no option but to agree to Gandalf's request, even though it essentially means they'll be stuck footing the bill for all of Gandalf's extravagant demands. Jose isn't happy about it, but Vezin reminds her that there's nothing they can do. Gandalf is an official inspector, and opposing him is the same as defying the king. Later that day, Kai is passing through the village when he notices Nada kneeling by one of the graves, carefully tending to it. Kai thanks him for taking care of the burial sites, but Nada simply replies that it's his duty as a monk. He then mentions that he's heard the stories about Kai, how he gained incredible strength after consuming a massive amount of godstones. Nada reveals that the same thing happened to him during his training at the monastery, where he was required to eat large quantities of godstones, which ultimately made him far stronger. Kai shows interest and questions Nada about whether his strength matches that of the guardian bearers. Nada reveals his divine crest as evidence of his power. This leaves Kai even more astonished, as he hadn't realized Nada was a guardian bearer. However, Nada clarifies that this isn't true. While he does possess a divine crest, he never actually obtained divine protection. Kai is surprised, unaware that one could acquire a divine crest without a god's blessing. But Nada explains that through intense training and reaching a high enough level of strength, it's possible to awaken a divine crest naturally. As Kai and Nada continue their conversation, Gandalf is seated in the castle, presented with a feast, yet he remains unsatisfied. His server apologizes, explaining that this is the finest they can prepare given their limited supplies. However, Gandalf dismisses their concerns and insists on being given more, even if it means some villagers go hungry. Because of Gandalf's selfish demands, the portions for the villagers have been drastically reduced, leaving them frustrated. They long for the day he returns to the capital so they can resume their normal meals, but there's nothing they can do to make him leave. Meanwhile, inside Vezin's room, Nada is having a discussion with him about an important issue. A large group of orcs has been spotted, and this group is bigger than usual, which has Olha concerned that it could be the beginning of an invasion. Nada reassures him that there's no need to worry about a full-scale invasion, since the group isn't large enough to threaten the entire human kingdom, but it still poses a major danger. Because of that, Nada wants to go after the orcs. However, he admits he's unfamiliar with the region, so he asks if Vezin could provide some help. Vezin understands the situation and agrees to arrange for a few people to accompany Nada on his mission to track down the orcs. That night, Kai returns to the valley, bringing some unfortunate news for Arua. He has been selected to join the squad assisting Nada in hunting down the orcs that have been roaming the area, meaning he won't be able to come back to her until the mission is complete. While Aru understands, she can't help but fear that if Kai leaves, he might never make it back to the valley. Still, Kai reassures her, no matter what, he will return. After all, as the guardian bearer of this valley, protecting it is his responsibility. Kai then makes his way out of the valley to meet up with Porek. He tells him that he'll be tracking down a band of orcs that have appeared nearby, and Porek speculates they might be searching for the ones Kai took out a few days earlier. Kai agrees it's a possibility, but he isn't too concerned. He's ready to deal with whatever the orcs bring his way. The following morning, while Gandalf continues to lounge around, a squad is dispatched to pursue the orcs that Nada is searching for. Olha and Vezin observe the group as they head out, though Olha feels it wasn't the best decision to assign Jose to this mission. Under normal circumstances, Vezin would have chosen Olha, but he now has to deal with the guerrillas that allegedly attacked Gandalf on his journey here. On top of that, Kai is accompanying her, and since Vezin has faith in him, he's confident that Jose will be fine. At that moment, Elsa comes rushing out of the gate, eager to give something to Kai. She tried her hardest to recreate the rice balls Kai mentioned by using wheat, and she wants him to taste them. Kai expresses his gratitude for the kind gesture, and strangely, just looking at the rice balls makes him think of his mother, even though he's been an orphan his entire life in this world. Then, Manso calls out to Kai, urging him to get moving. So Kai thanks Elsa once more and tucks the wheat balls into his shirt to save for later. The group then heads out, and after traveling for a while, they come across a horrific scene. There are dozens of dead apes and orcs scattered all over the place, and Nada believes that the orcs they are chasing must have gotten in a fight with the gorillas. However, there are a lot more ape corpses than there are orcs, but it looks like the orcs won the battle. But Kai has no idea why the orcs would do something like this. Jose mentions to Kai that they might be after the same thing as Nada, since she overheard part of his conversation with Vezin and Olha the previous night. Though she didn't catch everything, just then, Nada approaches, and since both Kai and Jose are curious, he decides to explain. He reveals that he's here because of an ancient prophecy. The prophecy speaks of a mighty god destined to emerge in these lands, and Nada's mission is to locate this god and its gravestone before anyone else can seize it. Legend states that whichever race secures the god will gain unimaginable power, so he absolutely cannot let the demi-humans get to it first. Kai questions what sort of god they're dealing with, prompting Nada to explain it's an untamed spirit, bound by no one's will. Its power is beyond measure, and it doesn't distinguish between good or evil. As Nada speaks, Kai reflects on recent events in the valley, slowly realizing the god Nada seeks might actually be him, but he can't tell them about it. The group keeps moving forward, and after some time, they stumble upon a village that has been completely destroyed. Kai suspects the orcs may be responsible for the devastation, and it doesn't take long before he's convinced it was indeed their doing. Jose quickly dashes ahead, determined to assist any villagers who were attacked. Nada cautions her that it might be dangerous down there, but she insists she can't just stand by while people are in need. Once they arrive at the village, they discover that a lot of the homes have been destroyed destroyed, and there are a few dead Uzels on the floor over there. The Uzels are a quiet and peaceful species, so they aren't hostile towards humans, but whatever did this definitely was. Kai spots an orc axe on one of the fences, so everyone is immediately put on guard, and they tell Jose that they should get out of here before any more orcs show up. Still, Jose believes there's a chance some of the Uzels might have survived, so she refuses to leave until she's thoroughly searched the village for any remaining survivors. Nada agrees they should investigate the village as well, though his main interest lies in examining the local land god. With that in mind, Manso instructs Kai to accompany Nada while the others stay behind to protect Jose. As Jose and the others walk through the village, they discuss how strange this situation is. The village is completely empty, yet the damage to the buildings is minimal. Normally, orcs would cause much more destruction if they were going to attack a village like this. Just then, Jose notices some blood on the ground, and the trail leads over to a house, so she thinks there might be an injured Uzels inside. Meanwhile, Kai and Nada make their way into the village shrine to examine the gravestone of the local god. Since it's quite dark inside, Nada chooses to use his spiritual energy to produce some fire, but Kai quickly cautions him not to attract too much attention, as orcs could be nearby. Nada finds it odd how calm Kai remains, since most people would be shocked to witness someone conjure fire out of thin air. He starts to wonder if Kai has encountered a technique like this before, but Kai can't really admit that he too knows how to wield fire, so he simply says he heard about it in a story. Still, Nada doesn't seem entirely convinced. Back above ground, Jose approaches the house and calls out to whoever might be inside, assuring them she means no harm. But when she opens the door, all that greets her is the lifeless body of an orc. Meanwhile, Kai and Nada have successfully located the gravestone. Nada pulls out a small notebook and begins deciphering the inscriptions etched into its surface. As he works, Kai circles around to the back to ensure the area is clear, only to stumble upon a young Uzel's girl collapsed on the ground. Kai and Nada carry the girl back up to the surface, where they discover a total of 3 orc corpses alongside her. Noticing such a small number, Nada concludes this couldn't have been the orc's primary force. Judging by the woman's clothes, it seems she was once the guardian bearer of this village. The others are taken aback by this revelation, since female guardian bearers like Jose are uncommon. Nada explains that this Uzel's guardian bearer fought entirely on her own. By nature, Uzels are physically frail. Under normal circumstances, they wouldn't stand a chance against even one orc. Yet this woman managed to slay all 3 orcs, buying time for some of her people to flee, even though it ultimately cost her own life. And knowing that other female guardian bearers are capable of achieving such incredible feats gives Jose the hope that she, too, can become strong enough to fight and defend the village. Together, they hold a small funeral to honor the fallen Uzels. But it seems that the guardian bearer's godstone was taken, which likely means her land god's protection has already been passed on to someone else. Bringing up the land gods, Manso questions whether Nada discovered what he was seeking in the shrine below. However, the deity present wasn't the prophesied one. With only 2 possible routes branching from the orc-ape battleground, the presence of just 3 orcs along this path suggests that the majority of their forces must have taken the alternate path. Kai glances at the map and instantly recognizes that the route Nada mentioned heads directly toward his valley. Without hesitation, he offers to rush ahead and investigate. There's no way he can allow the orcs to breach his home. Nada finds his behavior strange, but he agrees to let go. With that, Kai dashes off at full speed. Back in the valley, Horek and the Korers have just received alarming news. A band of orcs is advancing straight toward their home. Realizing they're defenseless without Kai, Horek orders Ketchak to round up as many villagers as possible and take cover. Meanwhile, he prepares to confront the orcs alone. He knows the odds are hopeless, but as their guardian bearer, he refuses to stand by while his people are slaughtered. His only hope is to buy time, praying Kai arrives before it's too late. That night, Olha and his men move in on the guerrillas spotted near the village. To his shock, there's a whole camp of them out here, and it looks like they're getting ready to attack. His men propose regrouping with the rest of their squad and launch an attack later, but Olha refuses to delay any longer. His men attempt to hold him back, pointing out that their numbers are too few to take on all the guerrillas, but Olha pays no attention. It wouldn't be so bad if his concern was the guerrillas striking during their retreat, but Olha's real motivation for charging into battle is his desire to win Gandalf's favor. Luckily, none of the others support his reckless plan, so in the end, Olha concedes and agrees to fall back to the village, regroup, and then launch their assault on the guerrillas. Meanwhile, the other group has made camp near the ruined village, and Kai's friends are beginning to wonder whether he was able to locate the orc horde or not. They're stuck waiting until Kai comes back and informs them of the orc's location, but it's already been a while, and they're starting to get concerned about Kai's safety. Jose grows particularly anxious, and she begins questioning whether she should have joined Kai after all. The thought even crosses her mind to chase after him, hoping to reach him in time, but the others insist she can't. Their duty is to ensure Jose's safety above everything else, and Kai would never approve of her risking herself for no purpose. Nada approaches Jose and reassures her there's no need to be so concerned. Kai is an exceptionally skilled warrior, meaning he likely won't fall out there. At this point, all they can do is have faith in Kai's abilities. Still, after saying this, Nada announces to the group that he's making his way up to the hill's peak. One of the guards asks why he's heading up there, and Nada replies that he's going to pray. That's all he can do in this situation. But the truth is, he's actually going to use a secret technique that lets him monitor Kai's movements. Somehow, Nada can't shake the suspicion that Kai understands far more about the Valley God than he's letting on. Nada sits down to meditate, and soon, 2 radiant eyeballs materialize above him. He then dispatches these floating eyes into the forest to track down Kai. Meanwhile, Kai himself is sprinting at full speed, desperate to reach the valley before time runs out. As he races forward, he spots countless orc footprints pressed into the dirt, every single one leading directly toward the valley. Suddenly, Kai catches the sound of rustling from a nearby bush. Then, just seconds later, a figure leaps out and lunges at him with a knife. Kai instantly pulls out his own blade, fully prepared to strike down his assailant, until he recognizes it's only Ketchak. Moments later, the rest of the Korers emerge, and Kai feels a wave of relief that it wasn't an orc ambush. But confusion quickly follows. Why are the Korers even here? Porrick clarifies that they detected orcs advancing toward the valley, so they came to scout their movements and, if necessary, slow them down. However, according to Kai, they didn't need to go through all of that. As the guardian bearer of the valley, protecting it is his duty. But Ketchak argues that he and the other Korers also have every right to defend the valley, since they've established their new village around it. They refuse to leave it behind. Kai is pleased to hear that the Korers will stand with him, but just at that moment, a loud noise erupts nearby. Upon investigating, Kai discovers that the orc are indeed heading their way, and to make matters worse, the orc leader notices him, meaning he has no choice but to fight. While Kai is out there putting his life on the line, Gandalf remains in the village, squandering as much of the villagers' food as possible. He slams a plate onto the ground in a show of disrespect, then announces that as an inspector, they must all treat him with the highest level of respect, or else he'll have no choice but to doubt their loyalty to the king. Elsa kneels down to pick up the pieces of the plate Gandalf shattered, but as she does, Gandalf takes a proper look at her and notices just how beautiful she is. Curious, he asks for her name. She is puzzled by Gandalf suddenly speaking to her, but she answers anyway, telling him that her name is Elsa. Gandalf then orders her to pour him a drink. She can see exactly where this is headed, and honestly, the expression on Gandalf's face makes her sick, but given his position, refusing a direct command from him isn't an option, so she's left unsure how to handle the situation. Luckily, Adelia intervenes, sliding a fresh plate of food onto Gandalf's table to divert his attention away from Elsa. She pours his drink herself, cutting off any chance for him to demand it from Elsa. Even Gandalf seems caught off guard by how smoothly he's been shut down. Later, Elsa thanks Adelia for stepping in, but Adelia brushes it off, insisting it was nothing. Abruptly, Olha and Basco return, and Olha is visibly furious that he missed the opportunity to battle the gorillas, so he shouts for someone to summon his father, urging him to assemble a bigger squad to confront them. Meanwhile, Kai's situation unfolds. An orc charges after him, but as it swings its weapon, Kai whirls around and drives his blade straight through its chest. Unfortunately, while Kai was distracted, another orc attempts to ambush him from behind. Just before the attack lands, Ketchak intercepts, burying his weapon in the orc's neck. At this point, they've eliminated a significant number of the orc forces, forcing the remaining soldiers to reconsider their assault. But then, their leader appears, moving with calm as he positions himself at the front. He then reveals his divine crest, locking eyes with Kai in a clear display of intimidation. Though Kai sees nothing particularly remarkable about it, Porrick immediately identifies the crest as belonging to one of the Rigdaros. Confused, Kai admits he doesn't understand what Rigdaros means, prompting Porrick to explain. Among Orkind, there exist 6 extraordinary warriors, each blessed by mighty land gods. These elite fighters are known as the Rigdaros, and their power far surpasses that of any ordinary guardian bearer. Kai shouts a warning for the others to keep their distance. He'll need to unleash his full strength to take down the orc leader. Nearby, Nada watches everything unfold. He already had his doubts, but now, after catching sight of Kai's divine crest, it's unmistakable proof. Kai is the one he's been searching for all along. The orc facing Kai is called a Durakan, and he's fluent in the human tongue. He mentions how unexpected it is that Kai's predecessor has fallen. There hadn't been any recent rumors about the Valley God, making him hard to find. But then, one of his warriors was defeated in this area, so he chose to follow the trail, and just as he expected, it brought him straight to the new Valley God. The Valley God speaks to Kai, commanding him to kill the orc, but Kai was already intending to do just that. Without hesitation, he rushes forward and attempts to stab a Durakan, only for the orc to block the attack and counter, forcing Kai to leap back to evade the strike. Kai tries to thrust his blade into a Durakan once more, but this time, the orc effortlessly knocks him aside and mocks him, calling him weak. Kai quickly figures out that a direct confrontation with a Durakan won't work, so he shifts tactics by diving between a Durakan's legs and attempting to stab him from behind. Although the angle is perfect, a Durakan's skin proves far too tough to penetrate, causing Kai's spear to break. Still, Kai isn't out of moves. Just as a Durakan launches an attack, Kai drops low and drives the broken spear tip straight into a Durakan's side with a swift kick. At last, this manages to hurt the orc, and the Korers are thrilled because Kai could really pull off a victory here. Yet, to everyone's shock, a Durakan's injury heals in an instant. The moment he stands back up, he slams Kai down without hesitation. Ketchak wonders if every guardian bearer can do something like that, but Porrick explains that what a Durakan just did is far from ordinary. In fact, he's beginning to fear that a Durakan might be immortal. A Durakan raises Kai into the air as the other orcs erupt in cheers, mocking him as a pitiful imitation of a god. Kai tries to break free, but with a Durakan's hand wrapped tightly around his throat. A Durakan tells him that he's going to take great pleasure in destroying everything Kai holds dear. Once he's finished with Kai, he plans to storm the valley and slaughter everyone in it, but Kai won't let things end that way. Summoning every ounce of strength he has left, he grabs hold of a Durakan's arm and unleashes a burst of fire. The pain forces a Durakan to hurl Kai to the ground. Kai quickly gets back on his feet, ready to keep fighting, and it's clear the flames are having a solid effect on a Duraken, so Kai intensifies the attack, launching an even greater wave of fire at him. But this time, the flames don't touch a Duraken. He charges straight through the fire and kicks Kai back with brutal force. The others are stunned. How could he have walked through that inferno unharmed? A Duraken smiles and reveals that his god spirit shields him at all times. His divine power lets him heal from or outright negate any attack he comprehends, and now that he's seen Kai's fire trick, it's useless against him. Kai is nearly out of both options and weapons, so he draws his knife and braces himself in a defensive stance. The problem is, he has no clue what move to make next. Physical strikes are completely ineffective, and magic isn't doing much against a Duraken anymore, so all Kai can do now is hope for a miracle. He attempts to stab a Duraken in the side, but the blade breaks the moment it makes contact, leaving Kai with nothing left to try. A Duraken then strikes him down, sending Kai crashing to the ground, and it's starting to seem like he's lost the will to keep fighting. The Korers are deeply concerned, realizing that a Duraken's blessing is far too powerful for Kai to counter. Meanwhile, Nada is worried that if Kai falls here, the power of the Valley God will end up in the hands of the demi-humans. A Duraken gazes down at Kai, calling him a disgrace. Kai's mind races, desperately searching for a solution, knowing that if things continue this way, the valley and everyone inside it will be wiped out. Then, in that moment, Kai notices the rice balls Elsa prepared for him. The sight of those rice balls sparks a memory of all the extraordinary knowledge he holds. He suddenly remembers that he has one more trick up his sleeve, and it's all thanks to Elsa's gift. A Duraken stands over Kai and mockingly asks if he is ready to accept his fate, but Kai is simply planning out his attack. The power of a Duraken's god allows him to nullify the damage of any attack that he understands, but that only applies to things that people know about in this world. Kai isn't entirely sure about all these atoms and molecules flashing through his mind, but one thing is clear: neither a Duraken nor his so-called god has ever encountered them before. That means there's no way a Duraken could counter an attack from Kai's energy blade. Just as a Duraken raises his axe ready to smash Kai's skull, Kai dashes straight at him. Before a Duraken can even register what's going on, Kai slashes through the space between a Duraken's atoms with his energy blade, cutting his arm clean off. A Duraken is stunned, unable to comprehend what just happened, and the Korers are equally confused. They were certain that a Duraken's blessing made him invulnerable, but it's obvious he just lost an arm, meaning Kai must have taken a completely different approach. A Duraken can't accept that he's being defeated, so he lunges at Kai once more, but that turns out to be a terrible mistake. Kai cuts him across the chest, and within moments, a Duraken collapses to the ground, taking his final breath. Nada witnessed everything, completely stunned by what Kai just did. Not only does he wield fire magic, but he also used a type of magic Nada has never encountered before. Now, Nada knows he has to be careful. Back in the destroyed village, Manso stands watch beside Jose when, without warning, she crumples to the ground. Manso tries to figure out what's happening, until he and the rest notice the deep, ugly wound on her leg. The injury looks serious. Meanwhile, in the forest, Kai has just claimed a Duraken's godstone, and the remaining orcs can only watch, their faces filled with complete disappointment. Yet, they understand they're no match for Kai, so they stay back, keeping their distance. Kai consumes a Duraken's godstone, and since a Duraken's god was immensely powerful, the energy Kai gains from the stone is extraordinary. His power starts surging outward, so intense that it sends all the orcs fleeing in fear, and it's a good thing they ran off, because a moment later, he collapses to the ground, knocked unconscious by the overwhelming surge of new energy, and Porek has no idea what's going on. After some time, Kai regains consciousness, but he can't recall much of what took place. Curious, he turns to the Korers for answers, yet they're just as puzzled as he is, since everything went blurry after a sudden gust of wind blew through the area right when Kai consumed a Duraken's godstone. Porek suspects the cause may lie in the overwhelming power of a Duraken's land god. He thinks that when Kai absorbed a Duraken's strength, it might have provoked the deity. That strong gust of wind was probably the land god's furious scream, but Kai never imagined that a god's power could trigger something so intense. Now, he finds himself unsure of how to handle the immense strength he's acquired. For the time being, he makes his way down to the stream to rinse the blood from his clothes. After finishing that, he turns to Porek and asks if he noticed anything unusual during the battle. Kai had been too focused to catch all the details, but he couldn't shake the feeling that someone had been observing him. Porek sensed it as well, though he chose to disregard it since there didn't seem to be any hostility. Still, the fact that someone had their eyes on Kai remains unsettling. Kai is ready to return to the others now, so he says his goodbyes. But before setting off, he pauses for a quick lunch. He pulls out the rice balls Elsa prepared for him, and it strikes him that he'll have to find a way to thank her once he's back. Without these, he might not have made it. They might have saved his life. Kai finally returns to the group, and the moment Manso sees him, he alerts Kai that something's wrong with Jose. Without hesitation, Kai hurries over to her and spots the strange mark on her leg, though he has no idea what could have left it. Just then, Nada arrives and mentions that he's seen this mark before, but instead of explaining right away, he first questions Kai about what happened with the orcs he was pursuing. Kai attempts to dismiss Nada's question, insisting they should concentrate on helping Jose first, but Nada presses for an answer, refusing to let it go. Kai lies, claiming he tracked down the orcs only to discover someone else had already killed them. Nada clearly sees through his lie, but exposing Kai out here wouldn't benefit him. Instead, he suggests that if the orcs are truly dealt with, they should focus on getting Jose back to the village for proper treatment. They set off without delay. As they're transporting Jose, Nada notices something suspicious. Kai's shirt is stained with blood. He points this out, remarking how strange